Trenton Journal is for people who won't take no for an answer. Trenton Journal is for community leaders. Trenton Journal is for people who won't settle. Trenton Journal highlights some of the positive voices in the community and fills in the information gaps through original reporting.
Welcome to Capital Conversations. I'm your host, Kenneth Miles, founder and publisher of the Trenton Journal. Each episode, we bring you change makers and stakeholders who are making an impact in the city of Trenton. Today, I have with me Corey McNair, Detective Corey McNair,
yes,
and founder of the Corey McNair Foundation.
Yes, sir.
Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
All right. So you've been doing a lot in the city, a lot like giving back in terms of community service with your Corey McNair Foundation.
Yeah.
In the Trenton Journal, we actually did an article about your foundation where you had an event in the city of Trenton recently, was it a few months back?
Yeah.
Honoring
October.
Yeah, honoring victims of gun violence in the city. How was that created, that idea?
So my nonprofit, the Corey McNair Foundation, on the books, was founded in 2020. But I've been doing community service work since I was 11 years old. So being born and raised in the city of Trenton, I realized there was a need, to help the community. But this specific nonprofit was founded after I'd already entered law enforcement, and it was around like George Floyd and a lot of issues that were happening in the United States between law enforcement and the minority communities. So for me, I said, what is it I can do as a Black police officer to show my community that, I'm not a cop that's out here to oppress and make people feel as though they don't matter. I want to bridge that gap. And a part of that, obviously, me working in law enforcement here in Trenton was to start doing projects here in Trenton showing people that I care.
Trenton, I mean, we got back up. You're born and raised in Trenton, so
it's a lot.
The city means a lot to you.
Yeah. So, going back to July of '88, I'm 37 years old. I was born to a 16-year-old mother and a 17-year-old father right here in the city. I'll just say I'm the only police officer in my family. My family comes from North Trenton, the Boulevard, and anything you can think about on the Boulevard, my family has, they understand what that means, if that makes sense.
What made you decide to get into law enforcement?
So going back to when I finished undergrad, I initially worked in the schools. I worked in Trenton Public Schools as a youth development specialist and case manager. And our funding actually, we lost funding. I can remember applying to like various jobs, and even though I had, I was in a master's program, it was just hard to secure like a full-time job, So I remember filling out an application for the civil service examination here in the state of New Jersey. You have to check off like different things you're interested in. And for me, it was a law enforcement exam. I checked off police, I think sheriff department, and corrections. And corrections actually is how I entered law enforcement. So they got back to me first. And I went through that academy simply to get into the state. And I said, I'll have my master's degree. I'll work somewhere else in the state. I got to get in this way. And when I went through that academy, I was like, I enjoyed the uniform. I enjoyed the structure of the academy, and I enjoyed just law enforcement as a whole. But I realized, fast forward, I realized that corrections wasn't where I needed to be. Even though I enjoyed law enforcement, I wanted to be on the other side of it, right? So I wanted to actually be able to help people before they actually went to prison. There's a difference once you're there, you can be able to have an impact on, the individuals who are incarcerated. However, I would rather have an impact on those who are, outside, on the street, so we can actually prevent them from coming to prison, if that makes sense.
It does, but growing up in this city of Trenton, the capital city, what was your relationship with the police department or police officers as a young Black man in the city?
So I'll say up until I was 17 years old, I had no interaction at all with law enforcement because I was, for the most part, like sheltered, if that makes sense. All of my family had been through everything you could imagine when it came to the city of Trenton, dealing with law enforcement, those who have been addicted to drugs, those who sold drugs, every aspect of the city my family experienced. and they made sure that I didn't have that same experience, if that makes sense. So
how did they do that?
Just the village mindset. Everybody poured into me. And I also attribute it to God as well, because the areas where my family, where there was lack, there were people that was in my life that was able to help me, along the way. If I didn't have a person who was financially literate, teaching me about opening my first bank account or buying my first car and all those things, like there was people that were sent, I believe, to help me in real time.
So what is you're on inside the police department.
Yeah.
How do you think that you're viewed, right, as a Black police officer in the city of Trenton?
So people tell me every day, and they mention that, and it's funny because I'm 37, but we have people in the community who are older than I am. I work, typically anybody who's from Trenton, they know we have an event called Cigar Sundays or R&B Sundays in the summertime, and I work usually every Sunday at Cooper's. And I've had, guys who, have had a past, they've been incarcerated, they've changed their life around now, who are older than me, who've come to me and who've said like, Corey, we look up to you. We feel safe when you're here. We'll get to obviously a little later in the conversation what's coming up. And I had someone say to me, like, not right now, like, don't do it because we feel safe when you're there. You protect us. And if you leave that role, what are we going to do? And I'm like, we'll talk about that in a minute, but I had to elaborate and explain further what it would mean if I left that role to do something different.
And before we get to the elephant in the room,
yeah.
Speaking about all of this, what are your thoughts about the findings of the Department of Justice in Trenton Police Department as it relates to the community? And
so I think, number one, we need individuals who are vested in our community to work in our community in different capacities, especially though the police department. When I look at, just reflecting back on the gentleman who said, we trust you, like you're a mentor to us in the community. Like we see you as somebody who we can come to if we have an issue. I think if you have more folk who are invested or vested in the community, then you won't have as many instances where you have, issues of people being oppressed or their civil rights being violated. And that just not just for Trenton, but I think that's statewide and even nationwide. When you have folks who are from the community, who are vested, they're going to treat you a little differently. And so the findings itself, I think there were recommendations that the department should actually, and let's be clear, right now I'm representing Corey Isaiah McNair. I'm not representing any law enforcement agency, and I'm not speaking on behalf of any law enforcement agency. Just got to put that out there. But personally, I feel that if there's an issue that needs to be investigated. If there's wrongdoing, those individuals need to be held accountable.
What's going on with your next event that you have? Is it tomorrow?
Yes. So tomorrow we are having our fourth event this year at the Galilee Baptist Church. This event is going to be for individuals who have either dealt with domestic violence or sexual assault. And people were asking, like, why these events? I think it's important that we touch people in real time and that we deal with the issues. And you said elephant in the room, the elephant in the room. We talk about Trenton as a whole, and they talk about crime and everything that's happening, but I believe there's a root to it. If people, have been traumatized and they have PTSD based upon past experiences, how about we start dealing with the root causes so we can actually work on healing our people as a whole? So as I mentioned, this is going to be the fourth event.
But what does that look like, dealing with the root causes? Could you give some examples? Back
in October, we had an event where we recognized and honored those who had lost their lives to gun violence. Those individuals are deceased, they're gone. However, their families are still here, left to deal with the pain, right, and the agony of losing their loved one. And a lot of them witnessed the loved one, like, deceased, like, in that moment. So, once again, we know you're from Trenton,
no,
right?
I'm not.
Where you
live
from?
in Trenton.
Where you from?
Jersey City.
All right, I went to school, undergrad in Jersey
Right.
State, in JCU. But we know that typically in urban settings, when you have some sort of violence that has taken place, usually based on culture, we're going to probably get the individual back. And I can remember having a conversation with a guy who spoke on that program, and he said that he works with youth. He was at a home of someone who had lost her son, and the friends came in and whispered in mom's ear, like, don't worry, like, we're going to handle it. And he said he knew that mom didn't want them to retaliate, but she didn't know what to say. And so a part of the healing journey is, acceptance and learning how to move forward and how to impact the community as a whole in a positive way. So in that space, we had the family members share, their memory of what happened. But also I said, I want you all to come with a story that you can remember of your loved one that made you smile or made you laugh. Because we have to shift the mindset. If we think of our loved one the way they passed away, then it's going to always be triggering. We're going to always reopen, the womb, pull the Band-Aid off. However, if we think about our loved one who has transitioned, but we're smiling about them and we're thinking about joyful moments, then we can think about, what can we do in real time? How can we take the experience of their loss, but to help someone else? And so in that space, we told, good stories about the individuals who have passed on. We also had therapists in that space to break down and process what it means to lose someone and what is grief and loss, but how to get to the other side and how to be able to start helping people based on your loss, right? And so for me, that's very important because we have to figure out, once again, how to get back to helping and not hurting, and how to get back to healing and not just existing. Because some folks are just here existing and not really living. So I hope that makes sense.
No, it does. What are your thoughts about restorative justice? Because what I'm hearing from you is like a theme. In the previous guest that I had on, people are talking, people who live in this community, right. It seems to be a theme that's going on right now. I'm not sure if you heard about what happened recently on Beak Street, but there was a young man assaulted, and someone was charged, a store employee. Mm-hmm. How does restorative justice play in healing Trenton in the community?
I think, so I have two, we could talk all day, but I have two examples with restorative justice. And one, going back to my last program that we had with the Corey McNair Foundation, it dealt with addiction. But for me, I didn't want to just tackle addiction on individuals who actually have used drugs. I wanted to tackle the whole issue, right? So people who have used drugs, people who have sold drugs, and also people who actually have lost their lives because of drugs. And when I think about those who have used drugs, right, we, once again, going back to that trauma, those who obviously have had some experiences in their lives, whether it was, sexual assault, abuse, abandonment, that caused them to want to numb that pain. But what about the person who sold it, right? So going back to those who actually have sold drugs and have been incarcerated because of it, right? And now they're back in the real world, they're back out here and they have to figure out what to do. So we let them know, like, you're important, like, you matter, number one, and we want to hear your story. So a lot of those people said that, we sold drugs not because we wanted to poison our community, not because we wanted to hurt anyone, but because our families, were struggling. They weren't eating, they were poor. And we sold drugs to actually feed the family. And so how does that look? You've sold drugs, you've been incarcerated, now you're back. I think everybody should be given another opportunity at life and to be able to figure out how we can be able to help each other, if that makes sense, as a whole. So I feel as though we should give individuals who have made some mistakes, or whether it was willingly and knowingly, they have now made a conscious decision they want to actually be a positive change in the community. I think we should help them with that.
Got to ask you this. So how do we get more people who are from Trenton, the area, join the police department? One of the barriers that I hear is that the pay is so low. Yeah. When people come on, they eventually end up transferring to a different department. But what are your thoughts about getting other people who are from the community to join the department?
There's a few things. I won't say that people in Trenton don't want to be police officers. I think that it's important that we prepare people for that process. And folks who are watching, anybody who's applied for a law enforcement job, whether it be corrections or police, they would know that there's a physical assessment that comes along with that, right? And so you have people who are from the community who actually want to be cops, and they pass all the I guess the check marks in terms of not having a record or having a high school diploma, and passing that what we have, the civil service exam. But when they get there, they're not physically in shape, right? And so the barriers on either side. One side could be they've had too many points in their license, or they've had a charge that won't allow them to go through the process. Or the other side is they passed the entire background check, but they can't do 5 push-ups. So I think that one way that we could be able to help the community as a whole in terms of entering law enforcement is to prepare them. Go to the high schools and let them know, if you want to be a police officer, all it takes is you have to be 18 years old, have a valid driver's license, and a high school diploma. And that's it. And start preparing them early, but you also have to be able to do 25 push-ups in a minute, 28 sit-ups in a minute. You have to be able to run a mile and a half in 15:55. Also, you have to be able to run, you have to sprint in this certain distance. So when you prepare them, now they know what they're dealing with, versus you just throw them into this application process and it goes by so fast. And by the time they know it, they're in the academy, and then they're not physically prepared to go through it. So I would actually argue that there are people who are interested in the community who want to be police officers. They're just not, a lot of them are not prepared to become police officers.
Nice suit.
Thank you.
I didn't know that. Yeah, you just want to throw on a suit, like you looking real official.
You got the patent leather.
No, but I'm not looking as official as you are right now. So speaking of official,
representing my community.
You represent your community. I don't know if I should just look in the camera. Like the elephant in the room that I referred to, your name has come up a lot when it comes to the talk of running for mayor for the city of Trenton, 2026. 2026. Some people have already made announcements, and I'm going to ask you right now: Are you putting your hat in the ring?
I am running for mayor of Trenton.
Well, we got to look at the camera. You got to look at the camera.
I am running for Trenton, New Jersey's mayor. My name is Corey Isaiah McNair, and I'm ready to lead our city. Yes.
Is this your first time officially saying it?
On camera.
On camera?
Yes.
Okay. Why?
You got it first.
Okay.
So I believe that, in short, we need someone who understands the system and also the streets. And I know I understand both. As I mentioned before, I wasn't born with a silver spoon. My family has experienced every struggle you could imagine here in this city. But I was blessed that I had a village that protected me, and I was blessed to be able to go on and receive not one, but multiple degrees. But also, I stayed right here. So I'm able to see in real time the struggles that people go through in this city every day. And I relate to both sides. And I would argue to say that a lot of folks who enter the political realm usually go in for selfish reasons. And my heart is pure when it comes to this city. I want the people of Trenton to get everything they deserve.
And what does that mean? And what does that look like?
Okay, so
what is your vision?
I'll go back to how I got, I would say, my footing when it comes to the political realm here in the city. But I often speak about Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Have you heard of that theory?
Yeah.
And for those out there who have not heard of Maslow's hierarchy of needs, it's a theory that basically says until the basic needs of a man is met, they're not a whole person, right? And so we have folks in the community who may not be politically astute. They don't really know about, what it means to be a mayor or a council person or an elected official, because their basic needs aren't met. And what is basic needs? That's food, shelter, clothing, employment. And so many people in our community are facing those issues right now. And I know that I can be a part of that change and helping them to get where they need to be. But first and foremost, as you mentioned, I work in law enforcement, and I don't believe there's a candidate or individual who's saying they're running who actually is a law enforcement officer. And we know one of the biggest concerns, usually in urban settings, especially in Trenton, is public safety. I can tell you, I can go from within. I have the organizational chart of the way the department is ran. I know who the good ones are, and I know who the not so good ones are. I know, my current assignment is community affairs. I know the challenges that we face from the law enforcement side, and I know the concerns of the people. On the flip side, my last assignment was executive protection. So I protected the current mayor of the city for 5 full years. Many times it was just the mayor and I. And I won't speak candidly on camera as far as my experiences there, because I did it in the capacity of a law enforcement officer. However, I will say that I was given the opportunity to be present. So if I was detail and I was escorting the elected official, that meant that I was privy to all the meetings and I was given an inside access to the mindset of those who run our city. So yeah, hope that makes sense.
It does.
Yeah.
What was the moment when you said to yourself, I'm going to run? Where were you and what prompted that decision?
Okay. So I won't say in what capacity I was in, but I can remember a young man here in the city, and I'll just speed up to not give too much description, but I can remember standing over a young man, right? And he had been shot 5 times, and it was here in the city. And I asked this young man, who shot you? Who shot you? And he paused and he looked up at me and he was trying to say a name. And as he's telling me the name, he took his last breath and his eyes rolled up in the top of his head and he died. And that wasn't the first time I had seen anyone transition, right in front of me. But I knew at that moment, we can't continue to live like this, right? And I wish I could share another part of that with you, but I'll wait and I'll share it with you off air. And I may have those conversations in the community as far as the other part of that story. But I'll just say that we need someone in leadership who truly has a heart for the people. And when I say that, they feel every loss. And not just they feel it because they read an article or they hear a name, because they're probably going to be connected to someone that was either related or impacted by the loss, if that makes sense. Mm-hmm. And that very young man, his brother actually was trying to become a police officer. And it didn't work out here in New Jersey for him, but I can remember him asking me questions like, what do I have to do? And so here I am coaching this young man who I actually saw his life leave his body in front of me. I'm coaching his brother who wants to do something different with his life and he wants to go and help the community. I'm coaching. So I've dealt with both siblings. One, as he was transitioning, leaving this earth, and one who's trying to make his time here count.
What are your plans for next year for your foundation?
We're going to keep doing the work. We've been doing the work. But right now, I want to keep speaking to those vulnerable groups, the ones that have been forgotten about. So as I mentioned so far, we dealt with, we had a program that surrounded those who were unhoused. That was our first program we put on back in August. And we moved right along in September to those, who have been impacted by gun violence. We honored 12 individuals. We had 12 families there, essentially memorial service. We memorialized them all over, but more to work on healing. And then we had another, event or program.
Addiction, right?
Connected to addiction. And up next, we're doing an event, as I mentioned, for those who have been impacted by domestic violence and sexual assault. So we're going to continue. People actually are reaching out to me and they're making requests. So it's not like I'm just picking these things out of a hat. People are literally saying, this is what we're dealing with. can you help us with this? So this event I'm having on December the 20th, I had a young lady, and she'll be on the program tomorrow. Her sister and her niece were killed here in the city. And I won't say who did it. I'll let her speak about that. However, they both were shot, a mother and daughter together. And what does that do to a family, right? And this daughter was a juvenile under the age of 18 who's killed along with her mother. We have another young lady who's going to be recognized tomorrow. Her mother, for the first time, is speaking out. She was killed in front of her infant, right? And so all of this that's happening in our community, all this trauma, is not making the community better, not making it better, excuse me. It's worsening the community. So whatever we do next, we have to continue to work on restoring and healing our community.
If people wanted to volunteer for your organization, your nonprofit, how can they do so, and how can they follow you?
So we are on Facebook. We're also on Instagram. So you can look us up on Facebook, the Corey McNair Foundation. You can also follow me. I have a page that we'll be launching officially in January. That's Corey Isaiah McNair for Mayor on Facebook, and Corey Isaiah McNair for Mayor on Instagram as well.
My final question for you is, how do you define impact?
How do I define impact? So I would say being able to see the results or the fruits of your labor, right? So once again, and I hate to just, I work in law enforcement, so we see a lot of, tragedy, unfortunately. So a lot of my experiences from law enforcement aren't always super bright. But I'll just go back to, there was an incident where I'm trying to figure out, I want to explain this and also protect the individuals connected to it. Let's just say I was at a venue and there was a shooting. And, the individual knew I was a law enforcement officer, and law enforcement was there, and they were clearing out a parking garage. And this guy is older than I am. As I mentioned, I'm 37, he may be 47. And I was in that parking garage. And as law enforcement personnel is clearing it out, I could hear this grown man who's married with children screaming, "Corey, protect me. Corey, protect me." And it wasn't that he was saying protect me as in protect and serve. He saw law enforcement with their firearms out, and he was afraid. This is a Black man in Trenton, in the United States, where we've dealt with so much with law enforcement in the minority communities. And I actually walked up to him and placed my hand on his shoulder and said, "Bro, you good? I'm here," right? And he and we saw each other again a few days later, and he said, "Bro, like, when you came over, I knew I was good." So that's the impact that I want to have on my community. When people see me, they know that they're good.
All right. Yeah. Well, listen, thank you for joining us. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.